Good evening. This meeting is now live and being broadcast and recorded. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Mayor of the Borough of Bracknell Forest, Councillor Jenny Penfold.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Council. I'm waiving the requirement in the Council procedure rules requiring councillors to stand when addressing the meeting, so please remain seated. The meeting is being broadcast and recorded. If there are any technical issues, please bear with us. I now declare the meeting open. Are there any apologies for absence?
I have apologies from Councillors Frewer, Gilby, Mackenzie Boyle, Neil, Welch and Harrison.
Do we have any other apologies? Councillor
Yes.
Barnard.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Councillor Mrs Hayes as well.
Right.
Thank you. Oh, she's online, but not present in the meeting.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'm present. It's Councillor Hayes.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes. I was going to say, do we have any Chief Executive? Is there anyone joining online apart from? Yes.
I think there might be one other apology in the room.
Right, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have an apology from Jerry Webb, unless she's joined us online.
Okay. Thank you. Chief Executive, is there anyone joining us online?
Councillors joining remotely, please turn on your microphone and state that you are present when I call your name. Anyone who does not respond will be recorded as giving their apologies. Councillor Bidwell?
Here.
Councillor Eggleston?
Here.
Councillor Jeffries?
Present.
Councillor Hayes?
Present.
Councillor O'Regan?
Present.
I'm just checking. Have I missed anybody that is present online that's not in the room?
No.
No. Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you. Agenda item 2 is to recommend for the approval as a correct record the minutes of the meeting of Council held on the 17th of April 2024 and annual Council held on the 15th of May 2024. I am happy to move the approval of the minutes. Sorry, but before I ask Councillor Temperton to second them, please indicate if you have an issue with the accuracy. Right. Deputy Mayor, has anyone joining remotely indicated there is an issue? No.
I think I can. No. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Temperton. Are you happy to second the minutes of the as a correct record?
I am indeed, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Temperton. As nobody has indicated they have an issue, those are agreed. Agenda item 3 is declarations of interest. The full text for declarations of interest is set out on the agenda papers at item 3. Does any councillor have a disclosable interest, pecuniary interest, or an affected interest to declare? Please also declare the nature of the interest.
Councillor Philip Thompson.
Philip Thompson, sorry.
Under item 8, I have an affected interest as I am a carer supported by Bracknell Forest Council.
Right. And you may remain in the room. And thank you. Right. Anybody else? Is there anybody online has an affected interest or a pecuniary interest?
No, I can't see.
No, thank you.
Put
Okay.
that on.
We now come to agenda item 4, which are the Mayor's announcements. Right, good evening everybody, and welcome to the first council meeting since our AGM. Is that right? Yeah, it's on. Before I start my report, I want to thank the council staff for their hard work and efficiency which made last week's general election run so smoothly. Also my thanks to CEO Sue Halliwell, to whom I delegated my returning officer's duties. As you can see from the slides, it's been a very busy month for both the Deputy Mayor and myself. Also a very enjoyable one. Our visits included formal occasions, anniversaries, small local events and regular parish events. It's been a privilege to attend all these. I have learned so much, especially about events that happen in other places outside fringes of Bracknell, not just in the town centre and south and the new town area. I've realised that Bracknell Forest is an even more vibrant community than I imagined. We have to thank the many volunteers for organising so much, many of them year after year. We continue to welcome about 50 people every month from all over the world to Bracknell in our citizenship ceremonies. Now, many of you already know that I have chosen the Ark for my Mayor's charity. I've chosen this because they and their volunteers organise help for such a wide range of people in Bracknell, in our community, from collecting prescriptions and other things, befriending, running clubs for youth with particular needs, organising vaccine and health clinics. Their website will give you the full range of their activities. I have met with Andrea, the CEO of ARC, and have discussed ideas for fundraising. She has volunteers who will help. Ideas so far include 2 or 3 quizzes with the inevitable raffle in different areas of the borough. A street cart, bucket collection in the lexicon, and we've had a few other ideas too. If you have any ideas, please tell me. All suggestions will be appreciated. Meanwhile, Andrea has offered to draw up a rough plan which I hope to discuss with her in the next 2 weeks when she's back from her holidays. That was her holiday task. Remember, we need your help though in a whole variety of ways. Thank you. Right. We now come to agenda item 5, which is the report of the executive. Would Councillor Mary Temperton like to present the executive report? Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the slides are coming up. Since the April 2024 council meeting, the executive has met 3 times, on the 23rd of April, the 21st of May and the 18th of June. Development of new housing allocations policy for Bracknell Forest. All housing authorities are required to have a policy that determines priority for housing allocation. The current policy is 7 years old. An updated version is needed to take into account national guidance and legal changes and ensure the borough's limited social housing is allocated fairly to those in the highest housing need. The executive considered feedback from residents on the new policy following a public consultation over the winter. Overall, it aims to make sure we have a fair approach to allocating social housing in response to the high level of housing need in Bracknell Forest. The executive agreed the new policy, which will start to be implemented this year. The Household Support Fund and Financial Hardship Action Plan, the executive agreed how to distribute Phase 5 of the Household Support Fund. This is the Department for Work and Pensions grant to help people struggling with the cost of living with essentials like food and energy. It was agreed that distribution would include purchasing supermarket vouchers for children qualifying for free school meals in Bracknell Forest primary and secondary schools, and households will receive a £15 voucher per child per week of the school holidays. enhancing the local welfare scheme by expanding the support available to households in need of emergency help, where assistance cannot be assessed elsewhere. The provision of application-based grants to voluntary, community and faith sector organisations to build capacity and extend the reach of support to all residents. Extending the debt support offer, where identified at-risk households with a housing benefit overpayment or council tax arrears are offered up to £1,000 to reduce their debt, alongside attending a debt management session. Additional discretionary payment to reduce the council tax liability to zero for 6 months for those that receive 80% reduction in council tax due to being on the highest rate of disability benefit. Should any funding remain unspent towards the end of the grant period, supermarket vouchers may be provided to households identified in fuel poverty, particularly those in receipt of disability and/or carer benefits and/or EPC below E. The Executive also noted the outcomes of the Financial Hardship Action Plan and the long-term support available through business as usual services. The All-Age Integrated Carer Strategy 2024-29. Our vision is for all carers living in Bracknell Forest to be recognised and valued in their community, supported in achieving their own aspirations and helped in their caring role. The All-Age Carer Strategy was co-produced to help achieve this vision. More than 1,000 local carers and professionals were involved in the development of this strategy, which will help us care for our carers. It sets out our priorities for carers and young carers over the next 5 years, based on what local carers have told us is important to them. The draft strategy was approved at the executive meeting in September 23, subject to public consultation. A 12-week public consultation took place to ensure residents had the opportunity to understand the draft and feedback. Biodiversity Action Plan 2024-29. The Executive agreed a 4-week public consultation on the draft Bracknell Forest Biodiversity Action Plan. The Action Plan is part of the Council's strategy duty to consider what it can do to conserve and enhance biodiversity. Our recent declaration of a climate and biodiversity emergency reinforces the importance of action for biodiversity across the borough. The draft plan for 2024-29 builds upon previous biodiversity action plans. Consultation responses will help us to refine and reshape the plan in line with what local people are telling us. Berkshire Integrated Transport Maintenance Contract Award. The Executive approved the award of a new contract for integrated transport maintenance from July 24. The contract covers all of Berkshire, bar the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead. For Bracknell Forest, growth in recent years, linked to the local plan of regenerated town centre, requires increasing investment in integrated transport infrastructure. This is required to manage the demand on local road network. It's been necessary to broaden the scope and specification of the new contract to meet current and increasing needs and to ensure improved service levels for councils and the travelling public. The contract was awarded to the most economically advantageous bidder. Social value policy. The Executive agreed a new social value policy and an associated matrix for relevant contracts. The Council has an obligation under the Public Services Act to apply social value to all appropriate and relevant contracts. Social value can also be incredibly beneficial to local communities and support structures outside of those directly commissioned by local authorities. The Youth Strategy 2024-27, a new 3-year youth strategy, was agreed by the Executive. It's based on what young people, their parents and carers and people who work with our children and young people told us is important during surveys, focus groups and engagement sessions. This is an important step forward in making sure the borough is a place where children, young people and their families feel safe and can thrive. Our vision is that all young people in Bracknell Forest will have access to youth work services to ensure their teenage years are enjoyable and no young person is left behind.
The strategy identifies 5 priority areas so we can achieve this vision. The executive also noted the accompanying action plan, which sets out how we will deliver the priorities, as well as the plan to revise the operating model of the targeted youth support services to support delivery of the action plan. Outcome of College Hall Pupil Referral Unit consultation. The executive considered responses to the consultation on the future of College Hall Pupil Referral Unit. The executive noted the pre-consultation feedback and outcomes of the public consultation on the potential closure of College Hall. The executive agreed the closure of College Hall following the public consultation responses, subject to the DFE agreeing to revoke the academy order. The closure of College Hall emerged as an option following an inadequate Ofsted inspection in July 23, as well as consensus among head teachers and other stakeholders that it was no longer fit for purpose. Additionally, from a financial perspective, its current operating model is no longer sustainable. The site will be disposed of and the proceedings will fund new provision within the borough for pupils with special educational needs and disabilities. Safety valve, construction projects. The executive approved the strategic procurement plan for 2 separate main contractors for the social, emotional and mental health school and 2 specialist resource provisions. This is all part of the council's work under the safety valve programme. The tenders will be evaluated based on a 50-50 cost-quality split. This allows for the contract to be awarded to the best all-round bid for quality rather than just cost alone. Council plan overview for quarter 4. The executive noted the council performance for the last quarter of 23-24. At the end of 23-24, there were 104 actions to be reported on. 71 were complete, 33 actions remained in progress, 20 actions were green, 12 actions were amber, and 1 action was red. Indicating the council plan at the end of the 4th quarter showed 36 green, 2 amber and 4 red. 15 indicators had no target set, as these are for monitoring only. Bracknell Forest Climate Change Summit. The 2nd annual Bracknell Forest Climate Change Summit took place this week on Monday the 8th of July at 3M, kindly supported and hosted by 3M in one of the businesses in our communities. It was attended by local businesses, community groups, schools, residents, councillors and council staff, as well as the Joint Community Action Board. The Joint Community Action Board was formed following last year's successful summit. It brings together representatives from working groups across the borough that collaborate on action against climate change. Attendees were updated on the current situation in Bracknell Forest, the council's progress and the move towards net zero locally. They took part in various workshops to help inspire change in their sectors, including understanding climate change and its impacts, developing your own climate change action plan, reducing your energy bill and emissions, enhancing biodiversity around you, creating a plan for sustainable travel, managing your own waste better, improving health and reducing emissions, driving climate action at your school. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Does any councillor have any questions for Councillor Templeton? Councillor Barnard?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, Councillor Templeton. My question relates to SEND. I fully understand and accept that the decision around College Hall is the right one, and I know that that was led by those that actually have a significant input into supporting our secondary age children. And I also am pleased to see the procurement under the safety valve work that's going on. Evidence is emerging all the time that unfortunately the progress on the operational day-to-day delivery of SEND is not progressing as fast as some might see. When will the executive next be considering the actual operational day-to-day status? Because I was concerned to hear a senior local head teacher in a trust indicating that they were left with no option but to take Bracknell Forest Council through a complaints process with the Department of Education for non-payment of monies relating to SEND. And my concern is, Leader, that this could potentially undermine progress on, sorting that situation and making best use of the facilities.
Totally agree, and I didn't know anything about that, obviously, but would the executive member like to respond to that, please?
Yes, Councillor Roy Bailey, I was aware of that particular case. I know the individual well and the reasons behind it. But he's just one. On a daily basis, I check this, and the Assistant Director and others are looking closely and painstakingly to make sure that we don't fall into the trap. We get too many complaints. We've had too many complaints. We've got much better at dealing with them. Most of them are in respect of not dealing with them in a timely fashion. That's changing. So I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing, but we're not complacent at all, far from it. And that particular individual's case, I know it, and I'm keeping a close eye on it. Thank you.
Councillor Barnard?
I note Councillor Bailey's response, but the passion and the conviction with that individual brought this forward was on the basis that this was not an isolated issue, and frustration was being expressed that progress isn't there. And through you, Leader, the reason I raise this is because on a number of occasions over the last year, I asked that there be greater scrutiny of the process around SEND and the progress on the plan, because I recognise it was something that in the last administration and in my executive role we didn't get right. There has been no scrutiny committee meeting on this subject. There has been no detailed discussion. I know there are plans going forward, but it seems to me that given the situation would appear with some conviction to be a problem still occurring, that I would seek your assurances that scrutiny will be given an opportunity to look at this in detail, because I know there are a huge number of officers working very hard on this. But, to get to a point where one of our own head teachers feels it needs to take the council they work in through a complaints process is frankly not acceptable.
I accept what you say, and I will move this forward so we have careful scrutiny and we make sure that we are actually meeting this and having listened to you, as we listen to you all the time, and this comes to us, coming to a council and following this from a council meeting, I assure you we will look at this very carefully.
Thank you very much, Leader.
Sorry. Are there any questions from anyone online?
No questions online, no.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is questions received under the Public Participation Scheme. We have received notice of a question from resident Diana Humphrey to Councillor Purnell, Executive Member for Environment, Community and Housing, which is set out at item 6 in your agenda, and it is on the screen. The response from Councillor Purnell has been published as a supplementary to the agenda. The question and response are displayed on the screens and will be taken as read. Diana Humphrey will have the opportunity to ask one supplementary question which should arise directly from the question or the reply provided and be succinct. Can I confirm that Diana Humphrey is in the chamber? I think she is, isn't she? Right, would you like to come to the lectern and ask your supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a much better view from here. From the public gallery, we can only unfortunately see the top of your head. So, my question was about the provision of bottle banks in the borough. In response to the answer which you have kindly provided, I would just like to say, be very brief. First of all, I'm rather surprised at the words in paragraph 2 saying that Sainsbury's were getting at their site, the majority of glass that Sainsbury's were getting at their site has turned up at BFC. I just get the impression that glass is moving around the borough of its own volition. That's my first comment. Number 2, you refer to 19 sites in Bracknell where glass can be recycled. May I ask, this is the substance of my supplementary question, that you list those sites and their ownership. And Madam Mayor, if you'll bear with me, I want to say 2 things and then I've finished. of those sites, the reason why I'm asking this question tonight, one of those sites is at St Michael's and St Mary Magdalene's Church. And I had the fun experience of standing at the bottle bank about a month ago with one bottle, which I'd walked up from home to put in the bottle bank. I spent about 40 minutes at that bottle bank, putting 99 other bottles in the bottle bank. Somebody had dumped 10 bags of glass bottles there. That's why I was prompted to ask why the bottle bank provision at Sainsbury's is no longer there. And finally, what I want to say tonight is that in your very comprehensive answer, you, the council, have said, I quote, "The council had no input into Sainsbury's decision to remove the banks."
Could you make it a question, please?
Yes. My question there is, it's a rhetorical question, is I'm very, very surprised that the Borough Council does not find it necessary to negotiate with one of the UK's largest supermarkets on the issue of bottle bank provision. Surely it would be a plank in the current climate change provision for this council for the next 5 years. It makes no sense. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Right.
Good night.
Councillor Pennell, can you please respond?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hemfrey. There was quite a few questions in that one supplementary, I feel. You asked me to list the sites and the ownership of the bottle banks that we have in the borough. If you visit the Bracknell Forest page, it shows you a list and a map of every single bottle bank that we have. The Bracknell Forest Council page in the recycling, and it's in there. As I said in my answer, we have absolutely no input with Sainsbury's. Sainsbury's made the decision to remove those bottle banks of their own accord. They were absolutely nothing to do with us. We had no role in that decision at all. And as it also says in my answer, we have increased the provision at the 2 sites local to Sainsbury's as well to make up for the additional glass that they receive.
Thank you. Right, thank you for joining us tonight, Diana. Please take your seat back in the public gallery. We have received notice of 5 questions from councillors, which are set out in item 7 of the agenda. They will be displayed on the screen in turn. The response from the relevant executive member to each question has been published as a supplementary to the agenda. Both questions and the responses will be taken as read. The first question is from Councillor Virgo and Havergy to Councillor Temperton, Leader of the Council and Executive Member for Council Strategy and Climate Change. The response from Councillor Temperton has been published and is shown on the screen. Councillors Virgo and Havergy, you may ask Councillor Temperton 1 supplementary question. Which one of you will be answering the question? Asking the question.
Madam Mayor, this is Councillor Virgo. I'd like to lead in, if I may, with your patience, to the question which my colleague, Councillor Havergy, will ask very shortly. So, to be honest, we're disappointed with the answer to our question. The Climate Change Working Group identified this project as a very important initiative which would make a valuable contribution to our green energy sustainability.
Virgo, we only have 1 supplementary question.
I will lead in it. If you just have a little bit of patience, Madam Mayor, I will lead into the question. I would ask for your forbearance in this room, because this is a very important project. While we welcome the option to use the site for biodiversity enhancements, that shouldn't be an exclusive development. West Solent Solar Cooperative in Lymington, which also has a solar array on an old landfill site, still manages 174% biodiversity net gain. Now, if I may, I'll pass this to my colleague to ask the question. Councillor Havergy.
Thank you, Tony. Our original question focused on the solar array on the site. Please could the leader provide us with comprehensive details of this anticipated PV array, including plans, dates and timelines, so we can understand what has currently been undertaken with this project and when can we expect for it to start providing us with clean green energy? Thank you.
Thank you both for the question. There has been a feasibility study on this area for the plan, but not actually on the PV site, but not on an actual plan or anything other than that. Now, it is a priority for this administration. This has been going on since 2014, so it is a rather delayed project. The biodiversity is a new part of it, because every time we build, we have to increase the biodiversity of the area where we've built. And for instance, for the town centre, we have to create an increase in 10%. So we might have to use that area for biodiversity. I thank you very much for the information about a site which actually has PV panels and biodiversity, because that should be actually measured and brought into the report. There is now a increase. I will instruct the officers to increase the momentum on this. I thought it was in my portfolio. I have made a mistake. Well, it's really in as a business portfolio, so I'm pushing that now with both portfolios, and that must increase the momentum. And I assure you there will be a report for October presented to us, which will put the costings and the feasibility and the viability of the three, really, the projects, the PV, the cafe type EV charging and the toilet, and then also the fact that now biodiversity is included, and you've just told us that maybe the PV and the biodiversity can be incorporated together, which is really good news for me. It's passionate. I can't do it any faster myself, but this will be moved fast. So thank you very much. No date as such, but October. Yeah. Right, we now move on to our second question, which has been asked by Councillor Smith to Councillor Templeton, Leader of the Council and Executive Member for Council Strategy and Climate Change. I have been advised the response has been provided by Councillor Purnell, Executive Member for Environment, Community and Housing, and that is being published and is shown on screen. Councillor Smith, do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Purnell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No supplementary on this item. I thank the member for her response.
Right, thank you. Our third question has been asked by Councillor Tina Ebele to Councillor Gilby, Executive Member for Planning, Transport and Countryside. The response from Councillor Gilby has been published and is shown on the screen. Councillor Gilby is unable to attend the Council tonight. If you wish to ask a supplementary question, the response will be provided by Councillor Gilby in writing after the meeting, which will be circulated to all councillors and published. Councillor Ebele, do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Gilby?
No, Madam Mayor, I don't have a supplementary question, but I'm looking forward to the report when it's being published.
Thank you. Right. So, we have... is that the last question on there? I think it is. Oh, no. The fourth question has been asked by Councillor Smith to Councillor Bailey, Executive Member for Children and Young People. The response from Councillor Bailey has been published and is shown on the screen. Councillor Smith, do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Bailey?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I thank the Executive Member for explaining the delay, though I must note my disappointment as this does not reflect my own understanding from conversations with him and officers prior to moving this motion last November. Regrettably, this represents a further year in which our policy fails to best support some of our most vulnerable young people and their families. Will the executive member give his concrete commitment and take personal responsibility for ensuring that this will not be overlooked again when officers begin working on our 25-26 policy?
Right. Councillor Bailey, can you please respond?
Yes, Councillor Roy Bailey, I will make that firm commitment here and now. There will be a policy in place for 25-26, and that will include a full review. If that new policy requires additional financial contribution to the budget, it will need to be funded as a priority as part of the budget setting process for 25-26. But I'd like to thank Councillor Smith for his eagle-eyed attention on this issue.
Thank you. The fifth and final question has been asked by Councillor Gore to Councillor Gilby, Executive Member for Planning, Transport and Countryside. The response from Councillor Gilby has been published and is shown on the screen. As you have already heard, Councillor Gilby cannot be with us tonight, but do you have a supplementary question for him?
Councillor Gore speaking. Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Right.
So it's disappointing to note that the rationale for safer parking is down to cost, but not surprising. But in the spirit of aspiration and ambition in what is a recognised problem area by council officers and councillors present, could I please ask Councillor Gilby to consider implementing a forum to explore other solutions, including speed management and other inventive measures to combat the road safety issues surrounding primary schools? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. The response will be provided by Councillor Gilby in writing after the meeting, and it will be circulated to all councillors and published. Right, we have received two motions submitted under Council Procedure Rule 11 of the Constitution, which are set out at item 8 at the beginning of your agenda. Each motion will be moved, seconded, and then we will move to debate. Please raise your hand if you wish to speak. You will be able to speak once for no longer than 5 minutes. Councillors in the room will be invited to speak first. The mover of the motion will have the right to reply before the vote is taken. If an amendment is moved and seconded, the debate will begin on the amendment. Anyone who has already spoken can speak again on the amendment. The mover of the substantive motion will have the right to reply at the end of the debate on the amendment before the vote is taken. Councillor Zahoudin, would you like to propose your motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
So, Councillor Smith, do you second the motion? The motion, sorry.
I do, Madam Mayor. Can I just confirm there was a minor alteration to the text of the motion notified to Democratic Services shortly before the meeting? Could we just confirm that that is the text and that's as displayed and that members are aware of that change?
Yeah, I can confirm that has been included in the slide, so it's the first bullet point on the slide.
Thank you. Yes, just to confirm for other members in the room, the amendment is to the first bullet point after council notes, which now reads, following the attack by Hamas in October 2023, there's been estimated death tolls at the time of drafting this motion of more than 37,000 Palestinians and over 1,000 Israelis due to the conflict. So it's quite a minor amendment, but I hope that's acceptable to members.
Right. Right. Can I confirm that the alteration is acceptable to all members? Thank you. Does any councillor wish to speak? Sorry. First of all, Councillor Zahoudin, can you speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Dear colleagues, this motion is tabled today to address a matter of profound concern: the ongoing crisis in Gaza. The indiscriminate killings of innocent civilians, whether they be Palestinians or Israeli, is a stain on our collective conscience. In a civilized society, such atrocities are unacceptable. Those responsible for these heinous acts, regardless of their position or affiliation, must be brought to justice. Our commitment to human rights and justice should compel us to act, even if our actions seem small on the global stage. The situation in Gaza is dire. To quote few stats and reference, according to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, as of now, over 37,953 Palestinians reported killed and 87,266 reported injured. Over 1,200 Israelis killed and 5,432 reported injured. Over 70,000 housing units destroyed and 1.9 million displaced in Gaza. The World Health Organization reported on 15th of November 2023 that an airstrike on Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza killed 45 patients and medical staff, underscoring the brutality faced by innocent civilians. Amnesty International on 1st of December 2023 condemned an attack on a UN-run school that killed 16 people, including children and staff. On 2nd of April 2024, a brutal airstrike killed 7 World Central Kitchen team members, including 3 British nationals, who were in Gaza providing much-needed humanitarian aid. In a BBC article published on 4th April, more than 196 aid workers have been killed in Gaza since October, according to the US-funded Aid Worker Security Database, which records major incidents of violence against aid personnel. We have a new Labour government in Westminster, and we hope it will continue its effort to uphold international law and hold individuals accountable for breaches. In October 2023, Richard Hermer, our new Attorney General, joined 7 other prominent lawyers in writing a letter urging all parties involved in the conflict to uphold their international obligations during the ongoing crisis in Gaza. His rich experience and commitment to justice provide a crucial opportunity for the UK to lead efforts to bring peace and accountability to the region. As a council, our direct influence on international affairs is limited. However, we can and must play our part. By supporting this motion, we are expressing our solidarity with the innocent victims and affirming our commitment to humanitarian principles. We call upon our government to ensure international law is upheld, to facilitate the safe return of hostages, and to provide safe pathways for delivering aid in Gaza. Additionally, we can advocate for the establishment of pathways for Palestinian refugees to seek safety in the UK, including facilitating medical evacuations for those in need of specialist care, similar to previous schemes for Ukrainian and Afghan refugees. I conclude by urging my colleagues in this council to support this motion. Our endorsement may be a small gesture, but it is a crucial one. By voting in favor, we are standing against hatred and violence and for peace and humanity. Let us ensure that our council does whatever it can, however small, to contribute to resolving this crisis and aiding those in desperate need. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, do you wish to speak to the or reserve?
I will reserve, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does any councillor wish to speak? Councillor Watts. Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to support this excellent motion. We must continue to support the peace process, and the government should continue its aid to Gaza. The Refugee Council has been helping friends and families of the conflict to communicate and to find safe haven, and we should aid them in this process where we can, and we should continue to show that Bracknell does not tolerate hate or prejudice. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Virgo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're very fortunate to live in a country where it's possible to express our views over a varied range of matters. While there might be differing views between us, this borough has always shown tolerance and understanding of each other. We watch every day on the news of the suffering and destruction of innocent people and their homes destroyed. We're all affected by the loss of life of this war and the terrible injuries of young children and the miserable future that lies ahead of them. While Bracknell is a long way from this conflict, there are many citizens who have worked or are working in Gaza, and residents have close connections with family members in Gaza. I am also minded of the continued conflict in Ukraine and that terrible waste of life. Any pressure to bear on people that can make a peace agreement must be welcomed by all of us. I'm happy to support this motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I think following on from the other speakers, it is a really, really difficult time in the world at the moment. I think as residents and as a community, we're seeing levels of violence unparalleled in a generation. And I think what is always the case, it's the innocent that suffer the most. And I was struck the other week when I was up in London, you know, just looking at various communications and things about conflicts past. It is the young who will never see the future, the children, all of those who are bearing the forefront of this at what is an extremely difficult time. Now, it has been alluded to, but one of the issues, of course, is that we can't directly in this council take a policy decision that will put any of that global thing right. Well, what I'm confident is that has always been the case in Bracknell Forest, which has been long recognised for a strong sense of community cohesion. I think it's a point making in great measure after the election last week, that it is about community cohesion, it is about tolerance, it is about understanding, it is about standing up for inclusivity, for fairness, for condemning and working hard to rule out prejudice and hatred based on race, faith or gender, that as a community we come together. I saw firsthand how we supported refugees that came over from Ukraine and from Afghanistan, with matters so diverse as actually helping some understanding of the English language, instilling a little understanding on how we drive or attempt to drive in this country, which was quite interesting, but also helping with banking and other systems. I am confident that this borough will open its arms appropriately to those who need help, that will support those that seek to bring peace, but also will support those people who wish to bring an end to this conflict and to support those. What we must say in doing this is that this is a little bit out of the ordinary, but it's essential, isn't it? That we're saying that we can actually express a strong view that we want to see an end to this, regardless of what side of a conflict they're on, that there are victims in this case in Gaza, which is extreme. I hope that we can work, our voices can be heard in this, but at the same time that we make sure that our residents understand that, as has been said by Councillor Virgo and others, this is an important issue. It impacts on society. And I finish by saying, as I started, we're seeing levels of violence in our world that we haven't seen for a generation. I hope that as things go ahead, that rationality and sanity will prevail, and there will be those that will negotiate a peace. On that basis, I'm happy to support this motion. And can I just say, I appreciate the minor amendment that was made to this at the start, which just sets out the context that has led us to this point, and I thank both the proposer and seconder for that. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Aegis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank all the previous speakers for so eloquently covering all the points that I also wanted to make, but I want to also make a few further points. This is unparalleled violence that we are seeing on our handheld telephones. We have never come across this kind of violence or this kind of access to violence. Every day seeing children butchered to death is heartbreaking. We have families, we have friends who have lost their loved ones. Wars have rules, dear colleagues and Madam Speaker, and those rules state that you will not target deliberately places of worship, hospitals or school, But unfortunately, in this war, all those rules have been cast aside, and those are the kind of institutions, the building that has been targeted deliberately, killing many thousands of innocent children and women who are victims on both sides, no doubt. We cannot carry on blaming who started this and who is to blame and who did this. We seek peace. There's only one way to come out of this mess, and that is if we all add our voices to many millions of the people's voices who've been protesting on our streets in every city of the world for the last 9 months. I want to salute all the students who have led this fight for justice and against this horrific war which is being perpetrated against children and women all over the world. I also want to salute all my countrymen and women who have been protesting every single day in all weathers with their young children to show solidarity with the victims of this war on the both sides. For me, it is very simple to release those hostages, end the war. Thank you. Free Palestine.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room? Councillor Gore.
Councillor Gore speaking. I'm minded that I'm wearing a lanyard. Most of you have got a similar one, which has a green one, which says, being Bracknell Forest. The first word on it is inclusive. And I acknowledge everything I've heard today regarding the motion, but for me, the motion fails to express appropriate inclusive balance in its terminology and does not consider all other foreign conflicts and persecutions affecting millions of people in the world. For example, Nigeria, 62,000 Christians killed since 2000. The Yemen, 150,000 Christians dead, 4 million displaced, 20 million in need of food. Ongoing Congo genocide, 7.2 million displaced currently, around 6.3 million and 3.7 million internally displaced Ukrainians, and the Uyghurs genocide in China, with 12 million facing persecution. For me, the motion should be inclusive of all conflict and all persecution in the world today, and therefore, regrettably, I will not be supporting the motion in front of us. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Templeton.
Yeah, I support everything that has been said. There is conflict across the world. This motion is about the one that has been since October, and I think as a council it is right that we cannot actually have a direct impact, but I welcome it because it enables us to actually show solidarity with the victims and to urge the government to do whatever it can to bring peace and to stop the slaughter and to stop the massacre. And if they can do this not only in Israel and Palestine, but in other conflicts all over the world, then we've achieved an awful lot. So I think residents would be very respectful and honour us for actually having the position with the leaders of Bracknell Forest to write this and say that we urge our government to actually act as much as possible to do us everything in its power to bring peace and to honour the victims and to show support for all those victims in whichever way it can. So I fully support this motion.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room? Right. Is there anybody online who would like to speak?
No, there's no one wishing to speak. No.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I would like to speak now. First of all, I would just like to thank those members who've spoken in support of the motion. It's very encouraging. I will speak to just a couple of the points Councillor Gore made. I do very much respect her speaking from a position of conscience there. but I would just like to speak to a couple of those points. She talked particularly about the lack of inclusivity, which I think I understood as the fact that this didn't include other conflicts. The two things I would say to that, firstly, are not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. We're focusing on one conflict here, and I think we're moving a good motion. But I would very much be very keen to work with her if she would like to bring further motions in respect to other conflicts, or more broadly all conflicts in the future, and to pursue similar agendas. The other point I would make is actually the final paragraph of the motion does indeed refer to other conflicts beyond just Gaza, and the welcoming of refugees from all conflict zones internationally. To move on to my more prepared comments. This is an immensely complex and long-running international conflict. Councils are, of course, not responsible for foreign policy, as a number of my colleagues have pointed out, but it is my firm belief that as elected representatives of our communities, we nonetheless have a moral duty to voice their concerns and anguish, and to offer what small actions are available to us in response to the terrible events we witness daily on our news feeds. Just in the last few days, we have seen multiple reports of airstrikes hitting schools and refugee camps, and the intensified bombardment of Gaza City leading to the evacuation of one of the few remaining hospitals in the region. When Councillor Zahiruddin first approached me on the subject of a motion on this matter, I was reassured that we shared a clear sense of purpose, specifically that any motion moved must go beyond mere moral posturing to identify specific actions or commitments within the Council's gift that might, at least in some small way, contribute to alleviating the suffering of the innocent victims on both sides of this conflict. The text which we have arrived at, and which is before members today, is not about taking sides, except insofar as it assumes the side of the innocent. The children of Gaza, whose schools are being bombed, the Israeli festival goers, torn from loved ones, held captive and abused, the many thousands who did not choose this conflict, who simply want to live quiet, peaceful lives, but in whose blood it is accounted. Whilst this motion makes considered efforts to avoid finger-pointing and recognises that there are bad actors on both sides who continue to seek to perpetuate and escalate the conflict, we cannot avoid acknowledging conditions for the ordinary citizens of Israel and Gaza do differ significantly. Specifically, it is a unique factor of this conflict that Palestinians in Gaza simply have nowhere to run. Gaza is a mere 25 miles long by no more than 12 miles wide. It is among the most densely populated regions on the planet, with over 2 million people living in an area little more than 3 times the size of our borough. Most significantly, movement in and out of Gaza is severely restricted and not possible for most ordinary citizens. Unlike other recent and ongoing conflicts in which displaced peoples are at least able to relocate away from the centres of the fiercest fighting, in Gaza there are no guaranteed safe areas and no locations which are more than a few short miles from imminent danger. We know that Bracknell Forest residents have friends and family caught in this nightmare. I would like to be able to look them in the eye and tell them that this council did what little we could. In preparation for this motion, I spoke with contacts in the charity sector who played an important role in coordinating the UK's response and support for refugees from numerous recent international conflicts, including the war in Ukraine and the evacuation of many vulnerable individuals after the withdrawal of international troops from Afghanistan. They have been meeting with government ministers to discuss similar programmes for Palestinian refugees, particularly those in need of specialist medical care and those with families here in the UK. But sadly, they report that these conversations have so far fallen largely on deaf ears, with minimal appetite for a UK response of this nature. I do, of course, note that political events of the last week will have somewhat changed that dynamic. When I asked them what we as a local council might be able to offer, they were clear. Central government can't deliver these schemes alone and will rely upon the support of local authorities to administer and deliver any programmes that are offered. If they can walk into those conversations
you have 30 seconds.
with government ministers armed with the support and backing of local councils, that makes a difference. So that's what we are offering here. It's not a lot. We are not today in this council chamber going to fundamentally alter the course of this conflict or even appreciably move the dial of British foreign policy, but it's the small thing we have within our power to do. So for that reason, I humbly ask for your support today in passing this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zahiruddin, Din, would you like to sum up?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I would like to start by thanking my colleagues in this chamber who spoke in support. This motion is a testament to our dedication to peace and humanity. As a council, we understand our ability to influence international affairs is limited, like many of my colleagues mentioned today. However, this motion represents a small yet significant action we can take in the name of peace and humanity. When it comes to humanity, there can be no distinctions. Humanity cannot be selective, it must be universal. Although we represent different policies and often disagree, we should stand together in our commitment to humanity and peace. So I once again urge my colleagues in this chamber to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion is set out on the screen now for a vote. The Democratic Services Officer will count the votes of councillors in the room, so please make sure your hand is clearly raised. Only those in the room can vote. Support the motion. Okay. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Right, thank you. That motion has carried. Now, on to the second motion. Councillor Philip Thompson has given notice of a motion which is set out in the agenda. Councillor Thompson, I understand you wish to propose an alteration to the motion that was published in the agenda. The altered motion is shown on the screen. So, yes, I was going to say, does anyone object to Councillor Thompson altering the motion?
Madam Mayor. I am unfortunately, due to my position, unable to propose this motion, and I'm going to hand this over in due course to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Councillor Smith, I apologise, Councillor Thompson's had to step away, unfortunately, due to his duties as a carer. He's run out of time for this evening, but I would like to propose the altered motion in his stead, if that's okay.
Right. Does anyone object to the motion being changed?
Madam Mayor, just a procedural point. I mean, does the Constitution allow for a proposer not to propose a motion and another member to propose a motion in their place? I don't have any objections to Councillor Smith doing this. I just want to check the constitutional niceties of it.
I will have to ask advice on that one.
I'm not sure that specific point is actually covered, but I will have a look now and see if I can find it.
Councillor Barnard, if you...
It does seem bizarre that, just to continue that point, that we have a motion proposed by someone who apparently is not allowed to speak to and talk to the motion. My understanding is, where I would have a concern is that I would feel that any member, including those that might have an interest, that there should be a way of handling this, but maybe not in this meeting, because we've been actually presented with a motion by someone who can't talk to it.
He has caring responsibilities which he feels is affected.
Sorry, can I, Madam Mayor, may I just make a point of clarity? If I may, I understand that he's had to leave because he has caring responsibilities that he has to go back to. It's not because he can't talk to the motion.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I mean that's good. But maybe it might be good, therefore, to defer the motion and debate it when actually he can be present to hear it.
Right.
Yes, I actually think that's quite a good idea because I actually cannot find anything which specifically deals with this point. So,
someone has actually said that it's happened before that someone has done that. So, Councillor Smith, would you like to?
I would like to formally propose that this motion be postponed till such time as a councillor that has first-hand experience of this can be present in the chamber, if that is seconded.
No, that has not been seconded. So we will carry on. Nobody's, at least I can't see.
Councillor McLean seconded.
Oh, sorry, Councillor McLean seconded. I didn't see you behind the heads. So what do we do now? So do we postpone it till... Proposal on the, is now that it is postponed, and it has been seconded, although I didn't see Councillor McLean at first. So that's Councillor Watt.
If anybody, I mean, if Councillor Forster is here, maybe he could speak to it instead.
No.
I don't know.
It has been seconded that it is postponed. We have to go along with that. Vote that is postponed. So, yeah, so all those in favour of postponing it. Could you count for us, please?
Sorry, I just would like to speak to why postpone it for the avoidance of any doubt. It's because I think this is a really significant and big issue, and I think more out of courtesy to the councillor who actually proposed this, that they should be present during the debate. I looked at this closely, and I'm not convinced that by delaying this to the next council meeting that it will disadvantage anybody in the process, because I think the sentiment is expressed there, and I feel that it would be really good, given that there was a further amendment proposed by the Labour group as well that has been incorporated in this, that if we do that in the future...
we need to vote now whether to postpone it or not, and so could we have those in favour of postponing, please? Well, just those against postponing. Right. Any abstentions? In that case, it is carried, or at least it is against postponing, that is carried, and we will continue to be debate. So,
Madam Mayor, could I have an answer to my original question, which is what happens constitutionally if the proposer of a motion is not present to propose a motion? I have no objection to this motion being debated. I have no issue with the motion coming before the council. But as somebody who respects and honours the council constitution, we have a set of rules that we follow, otherwise we have chaos. If we do not choose to follow our rules, or if the rules are unclear, we have to have clarification. I'm sure Councillor Thompson will make a perfectly reasonable speech on this topic, and as Councillor Barnard has quite rightly said, somebody with caring responsibilities will add something to this debate. I want an answer to my question.
The legal officer is asked for a short pause in the meeting so that she can clarify the situation, please. So could you turn your microphones off for... and remain seated for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. So, as we've ascertained that the Constitution is indeed silent on this particular matter, the discretion falls to the Mayor.
Thank you all. So we will continue to debate this matter. I'm sure Councillor Thompson would actually want us to do that. Thank you. So, Councillor Smith, sorry, is it you proposing?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I would like to move the altered motion as shown on the screen now.
Thank you. Is somebody seconding the motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Forster. So would anybody like to speak on the motion? So have I missed some out? Sorry, I'm on the wrong side. Yeah. So, yeah. Sorry, Councillor Thompson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, just for the benefit of members of the room who didn't catch some of those conversations, I do apologise on behalf of Councillor Thompson, who did intend to move this motion. As mentioned, he is a carer himself and unfortunately has had to urgently step away from the meeting pertinently due to that, which is obviously quite relevant to the meeting, but it was his request that I move it in his place, so which is why I support proceeding with it today. I do have his prepared remarks, which I will deliver on his behalf. So what he would have said was, as a carer himself, he is acutely aware of the demands and hardships faced by residents looking after loved ones. He is fortunate to be one of the just 1 in 8 carers identified to and receiving support from the council, but is very much aware of the many others who are struggling on in silence without the help that they're entitled to. He and I welcome the new all-age integrated carer strategy 24 to 29 as announced by the leader during her executive report earlier during this meeting. The strategy is central to ensuring we provide the support carers desperately need over the next 5 years, and we thank all those involved in putting this important policy and strategy into effect. The strategy recognises the estimated 87% of carers who are not currently known to or receiving support from the council. More detailed action plans are required to address this deficit and better reach the many unidentified individuals. We are therefore pleased to move this motion and trust that members will support it today to ensure that efforts to better reach the borough's many unidentified carers are afforded appropriate priority and these action plans are developed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Forster, would you like to speak now or reserve?
I'll reserve, thank you.
Thank you. Right. Councillor Templeton.
Thank you. It's quite important that we discuss this tonight because the action plan is the detailed action plan on the all-age integrated carers called Caring for Our Carers really is an action plan to try and include absolutely everyone. And unfortunately, from the census of 2021, we have 8,770 people identified as carers in Bracknell Forest, but Bracknell Forest currently only work with 1,164. Now, during this, when I first joined the council, there were only 63 young carers identified, and now there are over 200. And what that has shown me in my time of 13 years here is that the more you give, the more support you give to carers, the more they feel able to come forward and accept the fact and get recognised as carers. And we do need a strategy to actually make sure that we have different approaches and options to increase the reach into the community, so we actually can get, our vision is for all carers living in Bracknell Forest to be recognised and supported and valued in the community. The action plan is due to be published in October 24. If we hadn't discussed it in this council meeting, then it might not have been as included. I would have made sure that it was, but it'll be part of if it's passed tonight, it will actually be part of a requisition to actually be included in the action plan of what we're going to do to go out into the community to get more people to come forward, and we can identify the carers that at the moment are unknown. And I think the more support we give, the more they will come forward, and it's a really vital point. So thank you for bringing this forward, because I think we will make sure that these unknowns are found. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barnard.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased, Councillor Templeton, you referenced young carers, because that has been something which has always been, I think, as far as I'm concerned, hugely important, that our young carers often do what they do in silence, and we know that sadly all too often they suffer significant education disadvantage. And one thing I've been pleased with in the last number of years is that I think schools and colleges have been getting better about how they identify and sensitively work with this, because the one thing we need to be clear is that for many young carers, being identified is not necessarily something they associate with where they want to be. So I think it's creating, you know, that climate and environment. And I think it's the same for many other carers across the borough as well. I think, you know, we salute them, the work that they do, all hours of the day and night, and the circumstances in which they do it, as you say, often without any emotional support. And, you know, we know that has an impact on their emotional wellbeing, mental health, and their physical health in many cases as well. And I think any way we can do this. I know that the motion says that we asked the executive to do this, and I was thinking about this in advance of this meeting. In the area of climate change and others, we put together sort of cross-party groups and groups through scrutiny and others, just to see how we can further develop this by taking best practice, not just from within Bracknell Forest and, you know, through involvement, things like that, but also from the experience, as was going to be very powerful tonight, from one of our own colleagues, and I know there are others that have caring responsibilities as well. So maybe part of the work the executive could do in doing this is to actually facilitate that sort of work. I mean, you know, to support the action plan and the delivery of that, because, you know, you have in this council chamber 41 different perspectives. You have to involve representatives of well over 100 groups, large and small, in the borough. And we talked about the ARC, Madam Mayor, at the start of this, you know, the work they did, and also the outreach work that Healthwatch / the ARC did during COVID. So just maybe to bring that action plan alive and to see how we reach the hard to reach, which I believe we did fairly successfully as a community during COVID, we can bring that alive and actually in doing so help the executive in delivering firm and positive action on the action plan. It's a great strategy. It's one that we fully endorse and support. And it just, who knows, it just might be that we can make a strong case for some additional resource in these areas going forward to support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other councillor wishes to speak? Councillor Wright and Councillor.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor, and thank you so much to Councillor Thompson for bringing this motion regarding how Bracknell helps its carers. I personally was a child carer. My sister grew up with multiple disabilities, so I'm aware of how its impact. With our new carer strategy, we're ambitious to aid the carers we know about and to identify the ones who are not yet known. Over 1,000 carers were involved in the development of this strategy, and it aligns with the local NHS one too. The first priority in this strategy is identifying and supporting carers in the community. We already have a plan of doing this through working with GPs, our health partners, voluntary organisations and churches, etc. We will work with employers and national bodies too to promote carers' rights. The strategy has guided the development of the action plan, which will start in October this year, and the co-chair of delivering this strategy is a carer herself and will ensure the voices of carers are represented. We look forward to delivering this bold strategy and ensuring that all carers in Bracknell Forest are identified and feel supported. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Bailey.
Yes, Councillor Roy Bailey, and echoing what Councillor Megan Wright has just said, I think most of you all know that I'm a full-time carer for my wife, who has Alzheimer's, and I can't even begin to describe the emotional turmoil you're challenged with. It's one day at a time, and it's a huge responsibility. I'm managing, believe it or not, this is respite for me to come here, but it costs me a small fortune whenever I come to a council meeting. This is just context. I'm not seeking any sympathy or anything like that, but just to put it into perspective, how challenging it is. It's life-destroying. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any other councillor wish to speak? Does anybody online wish to speak, Madam Deputy?
No questions on that. Oh, sorry.
No,
No questions on that.
So, Councillor Forster, would you like to speak now?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a deeply emotional and personal subject for me as well. When I was a child, my mother had polio, and so I spent a lot of time supporting her. And over the last few years, I've gone on the care journey with my grandparents and my stepfather, as they have had dementia, strokes and other issues. I speak to my friend Philip Thompson, and I know what he is going through. I know the pain that he is suffering and the effort it takes. And I thank you, Roy, for describing yours too. It's very good to hear, that you being able to tell us what you're experiencing. I think everyone in this chamber will either know someone that's a carer or been a carer themselves. And when I was reading the Council's all-age integrated care strategy, I really do recommend it to you all. It's a really first-rate piece of work. There are a couple of things in it that I would just want to bring out. The first one I noticed was talking about sandwich carers, those that care up, for perhaps parents and those that look after children as well. The onus on them, the stress on them to do that work is incredibly hard. Secondly, there was an observation that was in that strategy that I just want to bring out to you all. And it said that carers valued the ability to talk to someone to gain access. And that's a big part that the council can play in their own care journey, in being able to give them that support, someone to talk to help guide them on the journey. And it is hard. The government, central government, throws all things at you from the disability, from the DWP. You have to deal with councils at different levels. It is incredibly hard to navigate it for the first time. And if we can make that journey easier for our residents, then we should do that. I have 4 asks of you all. The first one is read the carer strategy. As I say, it's a really cracking piece of work. And if we can live by the principles it sets out and be a council that delivers to our residents, then that will be fabulous. The second is I ask all the political parties to engage in the care work that's going to start. For the Liberal Democrats, you've seen Ed Davies' piece. It's really important to us. It's important to me. It was my first touch with a local authority 5 or 6 years ago was in the care domain. And I will ask you to get involved with that debate, talk to your colleagues at conference, explain the importance of getting a right care solution, because we can't carry on as we are.
Right.
The third one, and I've only got 2 more, I'll be quick, is support the carers in your community. All of us are councillors. We know where our residents live, the ones that need help. Use your networks, use your ability to reach out and speak to them, to help them. You're the best people, people that are in this room to do that. And finally, I ask you just to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, the motion is set out on screen for a vote. Sorry, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Smith, I haven't asked you to sum up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will simply just thank those members who've spoken in support of the motion, particularly those who've shared some of their personal stories. I know that can be an extremely difficult thing to do, and it's very brave to do so in such a public forum, so I thank you for your words.
Thank you. Now, the motion is set out on screen for vote. The Democratic Service Officer will count the votes of councillors in the room, so please make sure your hand is clearly raised. Only those in the room can vote. So, support the motion. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That is unanimously carried. Sorry, were you abstaining?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to raise a genuine point of order. Having identified a lacuna in the Constitution, can I, through you, ask the officers to look at the situation that has arisen this evening and perhaps in some way consider how the Constitution could be revised so that if we have a situation where a proposer or seconder is, for whatever reason, unable to talk to their motion, we do have something that's written down and doesn't rely on or put the Mayor under pressure to make a decision one way or the other on that particular point.
Thank you. Can that be noted?
Yes, it can. We have an ongoing review of the Constitution, so we'll certainly add it to the list of things that are currently being considered. Thank you.
Right. It remains for me to say thank you everyone for attending this evening, and I now declare the meeting closed. Could everyone remain quiet and seated until the democratic officer confirms the live broadcast is ended?